We're here to talk about transparency over secrecy and how we built a security scorecard that drives accountability without fear.
Exactly.
My name is Gina Andrews, and I am in Senior Information Security Awareness. I am a program manager on the Information Security Awareness team. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. And this is...
And I'm John Carr. I'm Director of Information Security at RIN. We're both from Rocket. If you know Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage, we are now Rocket. So this is our fourth rebrand in 5 years. So I can't remember who we are. So, yep. So good, quick. All right, so who are you?
Well, so I have been on the team with Rocket since 2021. In the last almost 5 years now, I have been spearheading different awareness initiatives in our program. That includes phishing, training, and metrics. I have a background in marketing and event planning, so it makes me super human behavior focused. I am a big picture thinker. I like to think outside the box, think of all the big details, and then my team helps me think about the little details also. I'm also a big game show junkie. That is my fun fact. Big Brother is on currently right now, and that is my show of choice currently.
And I'm John Carr, Director of Information Security. So I've been at Rocket for 18 years now, which is crazy to say out loud because it makes me feel a lot older than I feel most of the time. That's what takes it to there. In my time working there, I've been kind of everything. And just over the course of my career, I've been a consultant, architect, all the different things, right? And then I get the pleasure of leading Gina and the team of everything else. So I'm a tech person. So I came into this. I know a lot of folks coming through comms and marketing. I came in through tech. I'm a people person. I eat a whole lot of Indian and Ethiopian food. As you can tell, not super great at making a bio for myself. And I'm a retro computing dork. So if anyone wants to talk about TRS-80s or Sun Microsystems or SGIs, I'm your person. I might be the only person to talk about that here today, but that's me. So who is Rocket? So real quick, you can read on the thing. Some of us folks here might actually have mortgages through Rocket, and I appreciate that. I like getting paid, so thank you. We're based out of Detroit, 18,000 people worldwide, or sorry, really nationwide. For those who might know, we just acquired Redfin about a month ago. We're in the process of acquiring and going to integrate in Mr. Cooper for servicing the next couple of months. So what that means then is we'll be the largest end-to-end mortgage lender, really based on the home services area in the country. And so what that's going to mean is we'll serve millions of clients worldwide, like y'all, like myself, right? And so part of our culture is we have a very strong startup style culture, which is kind of weird in a lot of ways for being as big as we are, but 18,000 strong, and yet we act like a big chaotic startup. Has its advantages and its disadvantages. The advantages are exactly what we're talking about, right? If you have an idea, the expectation is just run with it. Don't talk about it, just do it. The downside, and I think a lot of companies here have the same problem, of having basically cultural ADHD. So it is so common. You have a project, it starts up and it disappears. Another project starts up and it disappears. Some land, some don't. It's a whole different thing for every single project, which means it's very hard for a project to break through, like the scorecard, which we're gonna talk about today. It's very hard sometimes to keep a project in everyone's focus and keep it going for a couple of years and keep the focus running. The common thing for us. One thing I did want to mention on the right-hand side of the slide, some words we're going to use here, which is lingo we use within the company. I have it here mainly because I can't not say these things after 18 years. If I have not said the word employee in so long, it feels weird when I do say it. So instead of employee, we say team member. Instead of manager, we say team leader. Instead of department, we say business area. Instead of users, we say clients. Instead of clients, we say clients. Makes it confusing, right? But I want to set that up before we start talking because we're going to have a heck of a time using other words than what we're used to.
So before we move on, John, I think we wanted to ask a question. Who here, or is there anyone here that is in the process of building out a scorecard, a human behavior risk index scorecard? Show of hands, how many people are currently working on that? All right, not quite a few.
How many have started the beginning of talking about doing something like that? Okay, so only a few folks. So question then, as we're going down this road, and I'm glad Gina brought this up, right? So for those who have started the process of talking about it, are you in ideation? How many folks are in ideation? One or two, right? How many have gotten down the line and they're blocked? Nobody. Okay, cool. All right, so that's a good thing, right? So we hopefully can give you some of the tools to move down that road yourself, or and I'm hoping we can give you the thoughts and ideas to start going, oh, we hadn't thought about doing that, but I kind of want to. So that's the point today.
So we have been, at Rocket, there has been an awareness function or program for the last pretty much 7 years. As John would say, it probably goes past that, 8 years, I think. So a total of 15 years, there's been some sort of awareness function at Rocket. But in the last 7 years, we've really ramped up our efforts. We've been able to identify opportunities, but also streamline processes and make things better and figure out a better way to communicate with our team members and our organization. But the problem with that, we have been running simulations, phishing simulations over the past 7 years. We run MFA prompt exercises and password guessing exercises. The problem with that is each of those events have always stood by themselves. Team members often forget that they even exist within days or even hours. Some of our team members had no clue that they even existed at all. So we want, as an awareness team, we want to make sure that our team members always feel empowered and knowledgeable to protect our company and also their information at home. We wanted to give our team members a way to be able to visibly see how they perform on our simulations or see how their behavior score when it comes to information security related risk, how they're performing. So with that, we kind of identified our problem. Our team members were unaware of their information security performance. Again, how it came back, were they spotting the phishing emails? Was their password getting guessed? If their password was getting guessed, they got a notification, we reset their passwords. So the people that their password was guessed, they knew. But other than that, people didn't know we were running those types of exercises. We had no standardized way to measure or improve the behaviors. Yes, we took each event separately and alone, but when we compile them together, how does that look? Is someone who's a top phishing reporter, are they also approving dual prompt exercises that we're sending? So it gave us a way to we were looking for a way to kind of standardize that approach and streamline it. And then lastly, our human risk behavior just lacked visibility and context. Like I said, team members often forgot or didn't know that these simulations were happening. So with that, we started envisioning and figuring out what we wanted to do. We wanted to empower individuals through personalized feedback. We wanted to provide our leadership with visibility into behavioral trends because we rely a lot on our leadership teams and having conversations and making sure that security is top of mind. And ultimately, we wanted to shift secrecy to transparency without fear. So we started envisioning our security scorecard. We partnered with a data analyst within our organization to help getting these ideas on paper and help build out something that could be great. But the result came to be our team member risk scorecard. Our team member risk scorecard is a dashboard that is built in Power BI that tracks our 3 simulations that we run. Again, phishing, passwords, MFA prompts. This was a direct result of our problem that we found. But those 3 simulations, we wanted to include the data where team members could go and see how they're performing, get visibility and feedback instantly, creating that feedback loop. Those 3 simulations, like I said, all run separately. So our phishing simulations, we use Cofense currently. That data to get into Power BI, I don't know if there's a Cofense rep in here, is not easy. We had to use a tool called QuickBase, which is a data management tool, in order for us to ingest our data into Power BI. The other 2 simulations we run, those were built in-house. So we store those locally in an Excel file, which made it easier for us to ingest that data into Power BI, thankfully. So let's take a look at what the scorecard looks like. This is what a team member sees when they go to the scorecard. We wanted to meet the team member with a cover page. The cover page was to help our team members understand what they're going to be looking at. It gives context of what it is. It gives context to the weighted scoring system and the scoring index. This was creating the transparency we needed right from the get-go as a team member went to see their score. This is a team member view. So as you can see, this is what an individual would see when they navigate to the scorecard. At the top, this underscore, that's their overall rating. Beneath that, you can see a graphical summary of how you've performed on all the simulations that you've received. And then at the very bottom, the team member performance history. That's kind of the meat of the scorecard. That is telling that team member when they received the simulation, what action they took, and the points that were allocated for that action. At the top, you can see Rocket minimum, average, and max. So that's showing that team member directly next to their own score, how they're performing against the company, giving them that transparency to how they rank up against the rest of the company. So we're still creating that we're not creating that shame, or we're not sharing scores, but it's allowing our team members to see how they perform against the company.
So this is where it gets fun for the leader. So if you look, it looks really similar, right? The view looks really similar. The cool thing about it as a leader, though, because we have all the hierarchical data in there coming out of Active Directory, that means then as a leader, I can then see not only the individual scores for each of my individual team members, but also I can take a look at like that in aggregate. How is my team doing? How is a group of team members doing? If I'm a leader of leaders, like a director or a VP or something, I can then start to break it down by my individual teams under me. So that's kind of neat, because in a way, it creates gamification inadvertently, in a way, because as a VP or as a director, I can start looking at these scores and kind of put them against each other in a way. Or I can start looking at groups of things based on title, things like that, that's all available. Remember, the scores are only available to yourself as an individual, right? So as a leader, I can see all these, but as a leader, I see myself, but I don't see the other leaders, like the ones that are my peers, but I get to see them all underneath. But the interesting part of it also, what we found from a culture aspect, is because what we're trying to do here is improve the culture in some way or help the culture out. So as a leader, I can see where my team's doing really well. But also an interesting artifact of that is, why do I have certain leaders where the scores are much, much worse than other teams? What culture have I created as a leader that makes it so that way they feel that this is less important, being information security, than other things? Or what culture did my leader create on their own team where that might not matter? Because we have teams that do banking, for example. They're talking to the client all day, right? Or they're folks that are doing underwriting. And these are folks that are interacting with the world all day. And so two things that we say in the company all the time: every client, every time, no exceptions, no excuses. Another thing we say is sense of urgency is ante to play. What you can tell by that is there's a sense of urgency to those two things. When you frame it right like that, you can create cultures where people go, the only thing that matters is the client, I'm gonna forget everything else. So what am I as a leader doing to make sure that that isn't happening and to increase those scores? Because I know I'm leading those teams, but I might have different weird things going on.
So now let's take a closer look at the scoring model. It took us a lot of fine tuning to get to the scoring model that we're at. We wanted to make sure that certain scores didn't outweigh others unintentionally, but we also wanted to reflect real world risk. So for example, looking at the weighted scores, clicking on a phishing simulation link was -2. Your password getting guessed, -5. A duo prompt being approved, -5. We felt that that the password being guessed and the duo prompt approved, those create bigger risk within our organization. And we wanted to make sure that our scorecard reflected that. The scoring index, so the team member's overall score, is an average of the weighted scores. So it ranges from very low risk to high risk. So it's taking an average of all their scoring, their allocated points that they receive, like we showed on the previous slide, and giving them a rating that way.
So an interesting part in this too is we came up with the scores, right? And I think, everyone kind of goes, okay, cool, whatever else. But that took a lot of deliberative work. The nice thing is that we're not all math nerds here, right? And I don't profess to be one either, and neither does anyone on the team. But I would say when you're going through this, the one thing that we had to learn, and I would suggest the same thing, run scenarios. You don't have to have a whole spreadsheet full of things. Literally all you need is a calculator. Because what you're gonna end up with, as we know from doing awareness, right, is you have intended and unintended consequences. The thing that you learn really early on in this is that people love scores. People wanna be the best, right? And they will figure out how to game that system to do that. Your team members are sometimes your best penetration testers you have for that reason. So what we had to do is run some of those scenarios. Let's say you have, for example, someone who does really well on MFA simulations, but bombs all the phishing stuff. Do they still somehow end up with a good score? Oops, right? Or someone who does a really good job of reporting all the phishing, but they bomb everything else. Do they end up with a good score? Oops. Or do you have someone who basically does all the right things, but then still ends up at high risk? That's not good either. So you just, and I'm not saying that you need to be Einstein to figure all it out, but really just run the numbers really quick and figure it out, because you will figure out those places internally. You go like, oh, someone can game the system by doing this. Okay, that's kind of cool, but I don't want it to happen. Or find those places where actually you might be giving too much credit in certain areas.
So once our scorecard was starting to get into a good place, we started having weekly planning meetings on our awareness team. We wanted to figure out the right way to message this scorecard. We needed to make sure that our team members understood the why behind the scorecard and also understood that this was not meant as a punitive tool. It was not meant to be a surveillance tool. We just wanted them to feel empowered and make sure that we got that messaging across so that we didn't get any pushback or we didn't get any of that negative feedback. So we were working weekly to plan this. We scheduled the launch. We decided to do a multi-level rollout. This was for a few reasons. Again, we wanted to make sure that our messaging was deliberate. We wanted to make sure it was intentional. We wanted to make sure that we were hitting the right people at the right time. So as you can see, we decided that we were going to pre-launch it to our champions group, which is our advocate group. We wanted to make sure that our team leaders were aware of the scorecard and what it was. We wanted to include HR teams so that they knew that this was coming. And then everything below that was our all company launch and the different channels that we use there, which we'll get into. So first, we utilize our champions group that Mark McMillan runs. Mark is in the room. I'm sure a lot of you have talked to him today. He's at the IASAP booth. But at the time, we had about 500 champions, I believe, that we could utilize for feedback. This was a great testing group. They come from all areas of the company. Like John mentioned, we have bankers, we have marketing, we have client relations, we have everything that you can think of. So our champions group is made up of multiple people from different organizations, just different parts of the company. We shared with them about a month prior to our whole company launch. We shared with them the why behind the scorecard, what it was, a link to the dashboard, and we asked, please give us honest feedback. Which is a little scary. You know, I've been working, this was my baby. I've been working on this for months at this point. I wanted the honest feedback. I wanted to know what can I expect before we go to launch? So the results were kind of shocking to me. Everybody loved the scorecard. There were a few trends. So team members had a difficult time figuring out how to get from the cover page to the dashboard. That was shocking to me because that's something that we had no issue with during our testing phases, and that we became, you know, we were very knowledgeable at that point with Power BI and where to look for things and whatnot, but that was not clear to our team members. So we made an easy fix. We added some context on the cover page that just said, click the tab below to see your scorecard. And that seemed to solve the issue when we launched. Next, we received feedback that people wanted to see more data. They wanted to see how they compared in other areas of the business. They wanted to see how they compared to their teams or their team members on their teams. They just wanted more insight, which was great. People were hungry for more information. Another part of that comment that you'll see is we want security awareness to always be a carrot and not a stick. And we agreed with that. But that stuck out to us a little bit. That wanted us to make sure, and we already knew it, but that call out we needed to be deliberate with our messaging. We needed to, again, just make sure that that was the main focus in all of the messaging that we sent out. And then lastly, and most importantly, like I said, people loved the scorecard. That top comment, I know it's a little small up here, that person was asking for more simulations. Is there anybody in this room that has had an employee ask for more simulations?
Unintended consequences.
Because that was a first for us. So that, I think, is a testament in its own that people were starting to see the value. They wanted to be tested more. They wanted to improve their score. They wanted to see ways that they could be better for the company. As we got closer to our launch date, we started rolling out our communications. First up, we launched it so all team leaders in our company. That happened 2 weeks prior to our all company launch. We sent an email from our Chief Information Security Officer's email address, or he sent the email, we drafted it, to all leaders in our company. This email stated what the dashboard was, a link to the dashboard, and how team leaders could use it. We were very clear, very, very clear in this stage, this was not a punitive tool. This was to start conversations, to provide coaching opportunities, to set goals for your team. Next, 1 week prior to our all company launch, we launched it to our HR teams. We wanted to make sure that our team leaders felt supported and our team members felt supported. So having the buy-in from our HR teams was extremely important to us. We wanted them to be in the know of what it was, what it wasn't, and how people should be using it. And lastly, in April 2023, we launched the scorecard to all company. Again, we sent an email from our Chief Information Security Officer's email address, directing people to an article on our internal site or blog site. The article post included, again, what it was, what it wasn't, why we're doing it. That directed people to then go onto the dashboard. We also accompanied that by a SharePoint page, which had an FAQ page that team members could utilize, team leaders could utilize, a feedback form. They could submit it anonymously to us to give us feedback. We got a lot. And then also we created an email distro for team members to send us questions to. We wanted to make sure we had that open form of communication so team members always felt like they could ask us questions, provide us insights, or if they were having issues or if their team leader was using it wrong, they could come to us. And then lastly, with our all company launch, we hung posters. We called it the How Secure Are You campaign. Hung posters all around our offices. And then we also had login screens for all of our team members that were met with when they opened their computer. This kept the scorecard relevant and top of mind. So in that first month, we had over 8,500 dashboard views, which is great. Over 5,000 article views and 28 article comments. This was the most engaged article that we had had to date. The comments were, again, great. The feedback was positive. We had team leaders letting us know that they were already having active conversations before we even launched it to all company. Again, I think that's the first time that I have heard of a leader taking the initiative of having conversations about information security. John, tell me if I'm wrong.
Oh, no. In my many years, no, that doesn't happen.
So that was great. People loved it. They loved the awareness. They loved the insight that they were receiving. We had team leaders talking to team leaders about it. We had team members talking to team members about it. It kind of started creating its own gamification in its own way without us ever pushing that narrative.
So on the transparency side, this is the thing that we were really kind of working on, right? Because there's so many pieces to being transparent. We understand we're threading a needle on the communication side, right? Because you could see very easily that someone could get very nervous. We started signing a risk score and we got HR involved. Like, I think we all see where it goes, right? Our team members aren't dumb. They see it also. So part of that was us being transparent throughout the entire process. So ownership. We said all along, you team member, you own this score and you are the only person who sees it. If you want to share it, hey, that's great, right? We always said that at any time. But we also said the same thing to leaders. You own your team members, and you should do that. But also part of that for both the leaders and the team members, we always said, if you see a problem here, let us know. We'll get to that in a moment. Of like data integrity, any issues. If you said like, let's say 6 months ago, I don't remember clicking that. Well, now you've got some kind of record that you can look at it. You can ask us about it because that's part of it. Education. So we have been consistently in team huddles, any kind of team meetings. The great thing about what we're able to do right now is we've kind of doubled down on analog education, being in front of our team members as much as possible and not relying quite as much on CBTs, things like that, right? So we're in these groups and we hit them consistently on this. Every time at new hire orientation, we mention it. When we're in front of them, we mention it. I think we all have had to deal with like, the annual compliance trainings we have to build, right? It's part of that too. So we don't hit them between the eyes with it. We're very subtly mentioning it all the time so that education's always there. And also gamification. Like we had mentioned before, there's incentive to gamify without us having to do it, right? As soon as people get excited about it, they start doing their own gamification. And the nice thing is, then we've built the platform. So if we want to do formal gamification around it, we can, but it's already kind of happening. You already saw some teams kind of battling each other. That was super fun. But so the thing that's important to talk about here a little bit is that we were very subtle about this on purpose, right? Because if we really got too strong on it, people would start getting skeptical and nervous, like we mentioned earlier about HR and things like that. It's very, it's like a little scary when you start talking to team members about a score assigned to them. And so we've been very subtle about it in talking about the transparency.
So like any good project, the work is never done, right? We always want to make it better. We're always thinking of ways to improve it. First off, we added an additional scoring index category. Based off of feedback that we received and just seeing the number of people that were lumped into one single category, we wanted to better reflect performance. So we added that additional category. We received input from our internal governance group. They loved the purpose, the vision of the scorecard. All they were worried about was the data retention and how the scorecard was currently set up. So we decided to move from our historical data being indefinitely there on the scorecard our thought was for team members to see their trends from start to finish and how they used to perform versus how they're performing now, to a 3-year rolling cadence. We were good with that change because that we're bringing the relevance back up. I mean, I wouldn't remember what I did 5 years ago, or even, 3 years ago might be a little stretch, but just making sure that it's relevant and timely. Next, this is a big one. Now that team members had access to see their phishing simulation results, they were able to advocate for themselves. I know it's no secret in this room for anyone who runs a phishing simulation program, there's false positives within our results. We were able to identify false positives. That means our results were showing people were clicking, but they actually weren't. People were reaching out to us, telling us that they were out of office during that simulation or during that date that the scorecard is showing. So we had to do a little bit of digging, and we were concerned about that from the beginning of building the scorecard. So we had to do a little bit of digging, and what we found was that out of office replies were causing false clicks. So with that, we were able to identify that if we use responsive delivery within our CoFence platform, we were able to remediate that issue. I hope there's someone in here that can take that information away that uses CoFence, because it took a lot of digging to figure that out.
Well, also, some of the things that we evolved into also is using it in risk reviews. Specifically, like we had to think about a lot. We talk about internally in the organization is thinking one level up, right? So if I am the CISO, if I got my CISO hat or I've got my HR hat, now there's all this data out there, and where do we think that's different ways we can get it used in some way? An interesting one. So we don't have any data analysts on our team, but we've been able to on occasion borrow some data analysts from other teams. And one group that helped us out a lot to just look at the data was able to overlay data that we didn't even know they had access to. They just did this as like a gift to us. Kind of an interesting correlation. We found, or they found, and they told us that there's a strong correlation between people who click And people who during the, well, who here has got like the annual survey, like how, like a 360 review of the company, how you like the company, how do you like my leader type thing? A lot of us, right? We get all that data, and that's the data they overlaid. They found out there's a strong correlation between clickers and people who have a very poor relationship with their team leader. Didn't see that one coming. It makes sense, and I can kind of take it apart maybe and things like that. But apparently those people don't feel as engaged with the organization or seem to care, possibly because they don't have a good relationship with their leader. I don't know what it means, but it's something we can work with, right? Also, the senior leadership buy-in. In the past year, there's been a renewed interest, I say renewed, but like a bigger interest from our senior leaders, because now, because of the scorecard, they don't really care about the scorecard so much because that's not the world that they live in, but really the data that feeds it. And so we've kind of ended up in a situation having to do a lot of extra work, which is good, of handling a lot of things that's on that review and on the scorecard, because they want to see more data that comes out of it. So there's been a lot going on there. So there's a lot of things we learned in the past couple years on this, right? A pile of things. And here's some things I can throw out there so if anyone wants to go down this road. Prioritize your data integrity from day one. We thought we had until we found out that we didn't. And poor Gina, just watching her like bang her head against the wall all the time, because suddenly we'd look at the scorecard and like our hierarchy's gone. Or all of a sudden the month of June is gone, things like that because of different things. That's a big one. Over communication is key. Remember we talked about, this is threading a needle. So if you're upfront and honest about what it is and what it isn't early on, that makes a huge difference. Design the scoring structure thoughtfully. So we talked about this a little bit before, right? The team members start to trust those scores and trust how the scores are made. If you change them all the time or the weighting, they lose trust. Success brings pressure to deliver. So we expected some sort of love coming from senior leadership. We didn't expect the amount of it. So there's a lot there that we had to take on. A lot of these manual processes that we talked about suddenly start to, in the next one, the manual process being hard to scale, started to crush under the weight of all the processes and that's things that weren't automated yet. And we learned there's a lot we should have done there. So what's next? So we decided we didn't want to do this professionally anymore, right? We brought in a partner, in this case with Living Security, to their platform didn't do exactly what we do, but was close enough that we can adapt, because this isn't the world we live in, right? Our world is making sure our team members are amazing and learning things. We don't want to deal with the data side. So let someone else deal with that. So we purchased it back in April. We're redoing the scoring right now. Q4, we're going to roll that out. And so we're really excited about where that's going to go. So now, here we are, right? We've seen ideation. We saw the vision. We saw how that rolls into some thoughts and how that turns into talking to people about it and getting them excited, into getting a minimum viable product out there and pushing and things like that. That's where we are right now. And so hopefully some of the things that we've learned during this. So you're going like, I kind of want to do this. What are some things that you can do tomorrow to take away? As a person who goes to a lot of conferences, it's one of the things I love the most. Like, what can I take away right now? So what is something that if you want to go down this road, you're just thinking about what can you do? Determine your purpose. Build your vision out of the gate.
Second, inventory your data sources. What we mentioned today might not match what your organization wants to do or how you measure risk. So inventory that data sources and plan early.
Decide to buy versus build. We didn't think we would have to worry about this until we did, right? You might have people on your team that are amazing at Power BI or Tableau, and that might be all you need till the end of time. For us, we had to borrow and scrape resources, and we learned like that is not a sustainable model. And we decided to move away from build, which is a great MVP for 2 years, and move to buy. You might be in a position where that's not the case.
Fourth, prototype and learn. It's a learning process. There's going to be a learning curve. Try new things. You're going to get overwhelmed with all the ideas you can throw at it, but just prototype and learn.
And lastly, engage your leadership in HR early. Inform them, just like your team members, what it is, but also what it isn't, and get them involved and have them be your champions on it, because you can't be everywhere, but if senior leaders can do that, that's one of the best parts. So it's literally 3 seconds left. Any questions?
Our apologies.